All right, hello and welcome. Today, we are diving deep into one of the biggest questions out there for anyone building a professional brand. We're going to look at a framework that shows you exactly how to use AI to build a huge following on LinkedIn, create incredible career opportunities, and this is the important part, do it all while sounding completely 100% human. Let's jump in. So this is the big question, isn't it? We all want the speed and the efficiency that AI offers, but absolutely nobody wants their personal brand to have the personality of a robot. The great news is you really don't have to choose between the two. But to get there, we first have to wrap our heads around the core problem. So what's the actual problem we're trying to solve? Well, it's not really the AI itself. It's the gatekeepers. You see, to use AI the right way, we first have to understand what we're up against. And that means getting to know the digital detectives designed to catch AI red-handed.
Okay, so meet our so-called enemy, AI content detectors. These are the algorithms that platforms use to sniff out text that was generated by a machine. And you know what? They're not looking for anything super complicated. They're hunting for two very specific digital fingerprints that pretty much all AI models leave behind.
Those two fingerprints boil down to a couple of key ideas. First up is something called perplexity, which is really just a fancy way of saying unpredictability. AI writing is just incredibly predictable. It uses the same common words, the same simple sentence structures, and that's a huge red flag. Human writing, on the other hand, it's messy. It's more creative. It has high perplexity. The second fingerprint is burstiness. Now, this just measures sentence variety. AI tends to write sentence after sentence of the exact same length. It creates this robotic, monotonous rhythm. But humans, we mix it up. We'll write a short, punchy sentence, then we'll write a long, complex one that weaves and wanders. That variety, that burstiness, is what makes our writing sound real.
Okay, so now that we know what they're looking for, we can finally talk about how to beat them. And it turns out the biggest weakness of these detectors is actually our greatest strength. Let me show you why.
So here's the really shocking truth. These detectors, they're not that good at their job. I mean, look at this. Even the best, most expensive premium tools are only right about 84% of the time. And the free ones? A pretty dismal 68%. That means they are wrong almost a third of the time. They're constantly flagging human writing as AI and letting AI writing slip right through. And this is the most important part. That inaccuracy, it's not a bug in their system. It's a feature in ours. It's a huge strategic opening for anyone who understands how to write for the detectors by just systematically erasing those digital fingerprints of low perplexity and low burstiness. And that brings us to the secret recipe. We're going to call it the Humanization Framework. It's a systematic process for taking a generic, boring AI draft and turning it into something that is not only undetectable, but is also uniquely, powerfully you. So the framework is a pretty simple 5-step process for editing those AI drafts. First, you're going to transform the sentence structure to make it less predictable. Then you'll diversify the vocabulary, getting rid of all those phrases AI loves to overuse. Next up is variation. You're going to intentionally mix short and long sentences. Then the fourth step, and this one is crucial, is adding the human element. Your own stories, your own anecdotes. And finally, you'll sprinkle in some conversation, using contractions and questions to make it feel like a real dialogue. Let's look at a super simple example. An AI might write, "The sun rose. It was beautiful." You can hear it, right? Classic low burstiness, too short, very predictable sentences. But with just a simple human touch, it becomes, "As the sun rose, it revealed a beautiful morning." See? By combining them, we create a more complex, less predictable structure. It feels like such a small change, but to the detectors, it makes a massive difference. And the best part is, this doesn't mean you have to spend hours and hours editing. The ideal mix is to let AI do about 70% of the heavy lifting. That's the first draft. You then spend your time on the most valuable 30%, applying this humanization framework and adding that final 10% of personal stories and insights that only you can bring to the table. Okay, so we've got the how. Now let's get into the what. How do we actually apply this framework to create content that builds a seriously powerful brand on LinkedIn? First things first, you want to focus on content that builds your authority. These are the posts that prove you're an expert. For instance, a contrarian take that challenges some common belief in your industry, that immediately makes you look like a bold, independent thinker. Or what about sharing one of your prioritization frameworks? You're not just telling people you're smart, you're giving them a tool they can actually use, and that makes you incredibly valuable. This is the stuff that makes people see you as a leader.
But authority is only half the battle. You also need trust. And that comes from being human, from being generous. Think about sharing mistake chronicles, posts where you break down the lessons you learned the hard way. That kind of vulnerability is absolutely magnetic. Or even just sharing a useful template you created shows you're generous. These kinds of posts create a real, genuine connection way faster than expertise alone ever could. Because vulnerability and generosity, they're the ultimate trust accelerators.
And when you combine that authority and that trust, you start building something incredibly valuable. You're not just building a following anymore. You're building a truly portable brand. It's an asset that isn't tied to whatever your current job title is. So, does all of this actually work in the real world? Well, the case studies are pretty clear. The payoff is tangible, and frankly, it's huge. First, let's just talk about audience growth. One case study followed a tech employee who started out with only 500 followers. By applying this exact framework, they blew past 8,000. That's not just a little bump, that's a 15-fold increase, all from creating content that provided real, humanized value. And that audience growth, it turned directly into career opportunities. That increased visibility led to 3 unsolicited job offers. I mean, think about that for a second. Recruiters reaching out to him, not the other way around. On top of that, he got multiple paid speaking gigs. His personal brand was no longer just a profile. It became an engine, automatically opening doors for him. But here's the clincher, the proof that really ties this all together. All of that growth, all of those job offers, it was all achieved while his content consistently scored 95% or higher on human content ratings. He got all the benefits of AI's efficiency without ever looking like a robot. This just proves the Humanization Framework works exactly like it's supposed to. And this right here, this is the ultimate goal, brand portability. It's this idea that your expertise, your reputation, your network, it belongs to you, not to your employer. It's a form of career insurance that moves with you wherever you go. And here's what that looks like in action. You build your public voice while you're at Job A, sharing what you know. Then, when you decide it's time to move to Job B, or maybe even start your own company, you don't have to start from scratch. You carry all that brand equity with you, which gives you immediate leverage in your next role. So, at the end of the day, the whole conversation has changed. It's really no longer about if you should use AI to build your brand. The real question, the more important question, is how skillfully you can weave it together with your own unique voice, your own stories, and your own expertise to create something that is both incredibly efficient and deeply authentically human.